So Dragon Age the Veilguard is getting roasted through and through. It is actually pretty ridiculous to see what's been happening with this video game, the amount of hate that's been happening with this video game. And to be honest with you, a lot of it's coming from the simple fact that nobody likes that we're making characters that happen to be exactly what the developers wanted, right? Like, if you don't want us to make characters that happen to be trans, then don't allow us to make trans characters. And if you think that you're the only ones that are allowed to make trans characters, then I think that's absolutely insane. And it goes to show that you just want to be a protected class. Now, I find it incredible that Forbes, of all people, is writing an article titled Dragon Age the Veilguard's clumsy, preachy political messaging does more harm than good, because in all honesty, I believe the same exact thing.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
So let's get into this article, guys, from Forbes. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I agree wholeheartedly with this statement. Dragon Age the Veilguard does not know the meaning of the word subtlety. They don't understand that you can tell a story that has progressive themes. You can tell a story that might have a little bit of wokeness to it. But as long as you're subtle about it and make it part of the story and make it interesting for people who are playing the game, you will never have a problem. There has been games that have been proving this through and through. Baldur's Gate 3 is probably the most recent one. But unfortunately, the developers over at BioWare, they don't understand this. They don't have the capability of doing this because it's so crazy over there. They're filled with such ideological psychopaths that they are incapable of doing anything like that with any sort of subtlety. So it says that the best way to convince someone of your own point of view is to generally not bash them over the head with a cudgel, though that seems to be the preferred approach in modern political discourse and alas in entertainment. I agree with that 100%. If you want people to be on your side or to join your cause, it is better to be more subtle than to bash them over the head. Sure, you could be a little bit more aggressive with your messaging. You could definitely be more aggressive with your approach, but there's a difference between aggressiveness and just flat out beating someone over the goddamn head with your ideology. Then it says the culture, being what it is, has lost all sense of subtlety. In far too many films, TV shows, and video games, we see a heavy-handed top-down approach to the issues of the day. It's a real shame that the developers at BioWare decided to go this route in Dragon Age the Veilguard. I've already posted my impressions piece about the game, which I've been pleasantly surprised with so far. I was worried going in, but Veilguard has been a lot more fun and a lot more engaging than I expected, even if I'm still annoyed with its overly saturated, overly cartoonish art style, among other things. In my piece, I noted that so far, at least, I hadn't encountered anything overly preachy or that one might describe as garnishly or garishly political and overly woke. Well, that's because, let's be real, if you look at the achievements on Steam, you'll notice that the majority of the player base has barely gotten past part 2 of the game. There's only about an hour or so of time in each part for most players that have a brain, right? So you got to imagine that it doesn't take much to get to the further parts in the game. I'm in part 7, okay? And I'm about to play it after I record this video on stream, so you guys go check out Griffcast on Hypnotic Live. But still, I'm about to play it. I'm at part 7. I haven't even gotten to the part where Tosh becomes a thing, right? And I feel like the reason why they did that is because the overly preachy stuff with Tosh and the whole, I mean, you get to do the trans thing pretty early on, you do, but they wait till the 2-hour mark. They wait until you get to about 2 hours in, so that way, by the time you find out about it, if you're a normie and you're not paying attention to the conversation, by the time you find out about it, it's going to be very difficult for you to refund the game, on Steam especially, because they're very strict for the most part about the 2-hour thing. So they do this and they wait until a little bit further into the game to hit you over the head with this stuff because they want to minimize refunds. They are trying to trap as many normies as possible into a sale. They don't want people to be able to refund this game, and they want to make it as hard as possible to do so. But then it says that the game is diverse and gives you options to play as male, female, or trans. But well, apparently playing as trans is the problem, according to the trans community. I really don't know. Like, playing as trans is a huge problem in the trans community. I don't understand why that is. I thought they would be really excited to see all the representation over on Twitter and on YouTube for their, for their characters, but I guess not. Again, and then in my time with it, this felt mostly like giving players more choice and freedom, and I'm all for that, especially in an RPG where choice and freedom are largely the point. Other big games in recent years have done the same thing. Well, I really don't feel like this game's an RPG, and if it is, it's the most bare-bone, basic bitch bitch version of an RPG, but that's my opinion. But I had not yet arrived at a certain section of the game that has now been making the rounds on social media, being roundly and rightfully mocked. Unfortunately, the scene in question will play directly into the narrative that this game is woke, feeding a cycle of online discourse that goes nowhere but earns lots of clicks. It will undoubtedly turn many gamers off entirely, not necessarily because they're unsympathetic to trans rights, but because they're tired of being preached at. Bro, whoever wrote this is absolutely spot on. That literally summarizes most of what we are arguing about, right? Because people don't realize that it's not about fucking trans people. Nobody gives a shit if you're trans or not, to be honest with you. You care about it more than we ever will. But what it is that people are tired of being fucking preached to. People are tired of looking at someone and them thinking that they are above everybody else. That there's some sort of protected class that can't be joked about. They can't be mocked like everybody else. And they'll be the ones that joke and mock about everything else, but you can't joke and mock about them. It's absolutely insane. And it's one of those ideologies I can never, ever believe in. I cannot believe in the idea of a protected class because that puts them above everybody else, and that creates this sort of mentality that they are so above everybody else that you can't say anything. And that's just insane. I will never believe that. Then in the scene in question below, one character misgenders another to atone for this sin. She does a set of push-ups and then lectures the other characters on how to properly apologize. The term non-binary is thrown around, despite this being a word that very few people had even heard of when Dragon Age Inquisition came out a decade ago, let alone in a fantasy setting divorced entirely from the real world. This is immersion breaking. Thank you for admitting this. Who did this? Is it Eric? Let me see. Let me scroll up really quick. Who wrote this? I want to give credit. Eric Kane. Yeah, so Eric Kane admits that this is immersion breaking. I am glad to see somebody in the mainstream call it for what it is. This is immersion breaking, and it is a parody of its former self. There is no doubt about it. And to sit there and pretend like it's not, like a lot of these games journalists are doing, is an absolute fucking joke. Frankly, it's written so poorly that it comes off as a self-parody. The character's performative apology is shallow and empty. All performative apologies are. In my experience, a simple and genuine sorry is better than making a big show of it and then bragging about how much better your apology is. The whole scene feels freshly cut from some conversation in an undergrad gender studies class in the year 2024. The kind of conversation said undergrads will have someday look back and cringe over. Here's the scene. Now, we've went over this scene in another video, so I don't have to go over it, but honestly, almost every scene involving Tosh is some sort of weird, like, non-binary fetish. It's very strange. The entire scenes are dedicated to talking about the non-binary term, talking about misgendering, talking about trans ideology, coming out to her family. The entire thing it is kind of like a self-parody. He's right. It's kind of like a massive joke overall on the actual movement that I feel like should be taken a little more seriously if they were just a little more subtle about it. But unfortunately, they're so hard on the nose about it that nobody's ever going to take it seriously, and they're going to feel like they're being preached to, which is going to turn off a lot of people, like this article said. And then he says again, my problem with this scene is not the inclusion of trans or non-binary characters in Dragon Age, but with the ham-fisted way the issue is framed. See, here's the problem. Even if you believe this, which I'm sure he does, he might not have a problem with trans people, just like most of us don't have a problem with trans people. But the issue is that they get mad when you talk about them in any way that is negative. They want to be above criticism. They want to be above jokes. They don't want to be the center of a joke because they feel like they're a protected class. So by you coming out and saying that you don't have a problem with the inclusion of trans and non-binary, they're not going to believe you because you are currently talking negative about their ideology. And that's the problem. They're going to lump you up with everybody else because you are now bowing to their will. You do not believe that they are a protected class. That is why they will never believe what you're saying. So it doesn't really matter, right? You can trigger warning this all you want. You could preface this with this statement all you want. But at the end of the day, they're not going to believe a fucking word you're saying because they want to be above you. They want to be a protected class. They want you to kneel before them and their ideology. And if you don't, they're going to try to do everything to ruin your life. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.